Good evening. I would like to call to order the City Council meeting for the City of Wheat Ridge, Colorado for September 11th, 2023. Would you please stand as you were able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll of the members?
Reginald Holteen. Leah Dozman.
Here.
Scott Ohm.
Here.
Corey Stites.
Here.
Janice Hoppy.
Present.
Amanda Weaver.
Here.
And Valerie Nosler-Beck. And Judy Hutchinson.
Councilor Hutchinson sent a memo that she would not be able to join us tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are 5 council members present, and as I understand it, Ms. Holteen will be along shortly, so we have a quorum.
Thank you. Councilors, in your packet, you have study session notes of August 21, 2023. Are there any changes or amendments to be noted in the study session notes? And hearing none, we'll let the notes stand approved with our thanks to the clerk. Are there any changes to be noted in the agenda? We will proceed with the agenda as presented. Let's see, we have one proclamation tonight. I'm pleased to read a proclamation in support of National Hispanic Heritage Month, September 15th to August 15th, 2023. Whereas Hispanic Americans have contributed greatly to our nation in all areas of science, art, music, sports, education, and public service, and have bravely served their country in large numbers in times of peace, in war, and in every way in our nation's history. And whereas in 1968, Congress authorized President Lyndon Baines Johnson to proclaim National Hispanic American Heritage Week, and this observance was expanded in 1988 to a month-long celebration. And whereas during this month, Americans celebrate the traditions, ancestry, and unique experiences of those who trace their family background to Spain and Latin American countries. And whereas 21% of Wheat Ridge residents identify Hispanic or Latino. And whereas, throughout our history, Hispanic Americans have enriched the American way of life, and we recognize the millions of Hispanic Americans who love family, hard work, and community have helped unite us as a nation. And whereas, accomplishments made by Hispanic Americans serve as an inspiration to all who seek freedom, opportunity, a new beginning for themselves and their children. Now therefore, be it resolved that I, Bud Starker, and the Wheat Ridge City Council wish to recognize September 15th to October 15th as National Hispanic Heritage Month and encourage residents of Wheat Ridge to celebrate the cultural, professional, educational, and civic contributions of the Hispanic community. Dated this 11th day of September, 2023. And now it's my privilege and honor to bring forth our chief to the podium. We have some recognitions in our public service sector. Chief Murtha, thank you for joining us. Thank you. The podium is yours.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you for a few moments tonight. As the Chief of Police here in Wheat Ridge, it's always an honor and privilege to get to speak to you. But it's really a moment and a source of pride for me to be able to introduce to you and to show the faces of the people who will be the next group of leaders in the city of Wheat Ridge. Tonight we have an exceptional group of people, and I'd like to introduce them, and I'd like to have them introduce themselves to you so you can put a face with a name. As I was thinking about it before, I thought there's really no specific order. I'm really enthusiastic about every single one of the people that we've convinced and that we're convinced that Wheat Ridge is the place for them. I am always amazed at the talent that shows up at our door or that's already exists within our organization. That being said, I'd like to call them up one at a time. I think they've earned that honor of being recognized individually. They put in the work, the time, and the effort to be the leaders that they are today. So first, I'd like to call up our new Public Information Officer, Alex Rose. Alex, if you don't mind coming up here. Before Alex introduces himself, I will just say that Alex came to us from a local TV affiliate. He has certainly all the skills, but when you hire somebody, you're never sure, did I hire the right person? And I don't want to say I'm still not sure. I will say that today, in a conversation that we had, I hope I don't embarrass Alex, I was sitting there with Chief Lorenz, and we were discussing, and Alex came in to discuss why he needed this weekend off, and I thought this story was indicative of somebody from Wheat Ridge that we want on our team. Alex's wife, can I tell the story? Is running a 100-mile marathon this weekend, or this Friday, Thursday or Friday, and Alex is her support team. And I thought, you know, here's a selfish guy who doesn't care, and he just wants to be part of his, you know, be part of the solution to help his somebody accomplish something. And as he talked about it, you could see the pride in his eyes, and you could feel it, and you knew that he's just that right person for the job that we have here in Wheat Ridge. So without further ado, I'll let him introduce himself. Alex Rose.
And thank you, Mayor and Council, for this opportunity. My wife would join me right now, but as we like to say in our house, she's busy, AKA she's going for a run. You know, I've spent the last decade as a reporter in TV news, and this is a surreal moment for me. I've probably covered about 100 city council meetings. I've never actually participated in one, and so I appreciate this opportunity. My name is Alex Rose. I am privileged to have the position to serve as the Public Information Officer for the Wheat Ridge Police Department. In my career, transparency and accountability have always been my North Star, and so I feel incredibly grateful to change my career path, but continue that mission and really build on the legacy and the expectation this department has set and a high standard with the people it serves of an expectation of transparency and knowing what's going on in the community, and also understanding the good work that our officers are doing every day. I've been on the job for 5 days. I feel like my eyes have been opened more wide in this past week than in any week I've had in my 10 years reporting in Vermont, North Carolina, and the majority of time here in the Denver Metro and in Colorado as a whole. I've had the privilege of riding along with some of these people who are serving, and I gotta tell you, you have a fantastic department here, and I think it's reflected in some of the other members that you're going to be introduced to tonight. You have a family and a community of smart, capable, and compassionate people who are working to make this place a better place. And it's an honor to be considered a colleague to a lot of these folks. And so it's been one of the most humbling weeks of my life. And I'll just close in saying, you know, I'm not technically a Wheat Ridge resident, but I live in this area. We know how wonky Colorado jurisdictional lines can be, and so this is the community I consider home. And so I'm very privileged to be in a position where I can have a direct impact on my community. I think this is one of the most exciting places to live in the Denver metro area and to call home. And I continue to be excited every day that I walk in through the police department doors and demonstrating through our actions as a department how we are working to make this one of the most vibrant and exciting and safest places to live in the Denver metro. I look forward to working with all of you, and as always, if there's anything I can do to help, please let me know. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, next if I can call up newly promoted Sergeant Julia Slade. Julia has worked with us for several years and is currently a detective assigned to our detective bureau. Sergeant Slade, if I can call her that, today is her first day as a sergeant, is an exceptional human being, highly qualified, and our go-to person, sometimes my go-to person when I find somebody in the lobby who hasn't been we haven't met their service needs yet. I usually come up and look for Julia. She is a tremendous human being, a tremendous person, and she will be a tremendous leader in the future. I certainly talk all the time about our frontline leadership being the backbone of policing, that being our sergeants out there and a lot of our corporals, and she will be a welcome addition to that group. So without any further ado, I introduce Sergeant Julia Slade.
Well, I can just say I'm not going to be nearly as eloquent as my predecessor by any means, but I've been with Wheat Ridge since 2011. I started in dispatch, doing the overnight dispatching for our community, and fell in love with the people that I work with, the team that we have, and decided to move into the patrol division after some arduous work in getting my 60 credit hours so I could apply. And from there, I've been field training officer. As Chief mentioned, I'm also, have to say was now, a detective for the Persons Crimes Department, and I'm incredibly excited to be a sergeant. My passion's training. I enjoy training, and I enjoy being able to instill my knowledge and my compassion into those that are under me, so I'm looking forward to having the ability and the time to be able to do that on a more developed level. So. It's wonderful to see you all, and some of you, I recognize your faces. It's good to see you again.
Again, in no specific order, but next I'd like to introduce our newest commander, Commander Betsy Saylor. Commander Saylor is currently enrolled in a Northwestern Command School, so she made time out of Northwestern University's Command School to come here tonight because I think it's important that she sees you and you see her. Betsy and I have worked together almost since I got here, but she is now our Professional Standards Unit Sergeant, or was, I guess. And she is a tremendous asset to the police department. She is respected by every single member of this police department. Just as a side note, my office and Betsy's are right next to each other. And when citizens are unhappy with something that happens in the community, never the police officers, but something that happens in the community, as you can expect, I've never heard a more calm, measured person in my entire life to bring them down and to de-escalate any issue that they're having. It's been an honor to work next to her. I watch what she does every day. I am always amazed at the effort and the talent that we have in Wheat Ridge, and this is an example of that. She will be a tremendous leader, and she will demonstrate all the core values of the city of Wheat Ridge on a daily basis because she's been doing that since the day I got here. So I'm proud to introduce Commander Betsy Saylor.
Thank you. I have had the honor and the privilege of working for the Wheat Ridge Police Department for the past 20 years, and every day has been a blessing. I've learned so much. I've worked along some of the most amazing men and women that have ever served. Like Chief said, I've been lucky enough to work in the Professional Standards Unit recently, which I really enjoy, but it's an exciting time in the police department right now. We've got a new division chief, we've got a lot of movement going on, and I think that now is the time the department's going to kind of push forward, and I am very, very excited to be a part of it. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity.
I'll ask Chief Kellogg to come on up here, please. Chief Kellogg, tonight we will be swearing Chief Kellogg in. Chief Kellogg comes to us from the Arvada Police Department. We did a national search for a division chief to replace Chief Guadagnola, who's gone up to Commerce City. And we were lucky enough to find a lot of qualified applicants, but one stood out above the rest. And we were able to convince him, without much convincing, to come over from Arvada. He is a tremendously well-rounded individual, but his attitude and his enthusiasm will just blow you away. His passion for Wheat Ridge will make you a believer. I'm a believer. And he certainly has shown from day one that he wants to be here, and I think there's no better testament to his character than his continued efforts to think about how we can make Wheat Ridge a better place, and I hear that from him all the time, every time we talk. So I'm encouraged by that. In Wheat Ridge, at the Wheat Ridge Police Department, we talk about family as one of our individual values or our values in the police department. I would ask your wife, and I forgot her name already, Sean, if you would come up too as we swear in Eric tonight in front of friends and family, and his friends and family are now his police department as well. So that being said, Eric, if you stand right in front of this podium, we'll go ahead and swear you in. If you stand right next to him. Eric, I'd ask you to raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I state your name. I, Eric Keller. Do solemnly swear upon my honor. Do solemnly swear upon my honor. That I will never betray my badge. That I will never betray my integrity. My integrity. My character. Okay. Or the public's trust. Or the public's trust. I will always strive. I will always strive. To have the courage. To have the courage. To hold others and myself accountable. To hold others and myself for our actions. For our actions. I will uphold. I will uphold the Constitution and laws. The Constitution and laws. Of the United States of America. Of the United States of America. And the state of Colorado. The state of Colorado. And the charter and ordinances. And the charter and ordinances. Of the city of Wheat Ridge. Of the city of Wheat Ridge. I will strive to be responsible. I will strive to be responsible. To all citizens. To all citizens. Of the city. Of the city. And will faithfully perform the duties of police officer. And will faithfully perform the duties of police officer. Sir, Division Chief, to the best of my skill and ability. To the best of my skill and ability. Congratulations and welcome to you. Thank you.
I feel like the luckiest guy, actually, to have this opportunity. I've worked with the Arvada Police Department for 20 years, and consequently, I've been privileged to work on many cases from shootings to accidents with Wheat Ridge detectives, commanders, other division chiefs, and the chief on a few different occasions. And when I saw this opportunity, I just, literally in my letter, it says I was compelled. I couldn't not put in for this. And as I worked through the process, my eyes were even more open to what a wonderful experience and community the Wheat Ridge Police Department is, the city of Wheat Ridge is. And when the job offer came, I was remarkably relieved for the opportunity. So I'm not going to say much more other than just to say thank you. I really do appreciate the opportunity. I look forward to working with all of you and getting to know all of you further. Sir, it's nice to see you. Commander, welcome. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chief. I appreciate it.
Okay, we're not done yet because we need all the honorees and their families to join us in front of the council because our council members love a photo op. So if you would please gather in front of the dais, we'll go from there.
I'll text it to you. All right, everybody, let's see.
like to go to our public's right to speak. This is an opportunity for the public to come and speak on any agenda item or any item that is not on the agenda for a maximum of 3 minutes. If I don't have anyone signed up to speak, but if you're here in City Hall and would like to speak on any item not on the agenda, you may come to the podium and we will recognize you. If you're joining us in our online format, if you would please raise your hand, we'll be happy to bring you into the meeting and for you to address the council. Is there anyone raising their hand? Okay, I
No,
don't
Mr.
see,
Mayor.
don't see anyone wanting to join us online, and I don't see anyone in the hall joining us. We will close our public's right to speak and go to agenda item number 1. This is our consent agenda. Mayor Pro Tem Stites, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Consent agenda number 1A, motion to approve payment to Insight Public Sector in the amount of $166,400.64 for the annual renewal of our Microsoft Enterprise Agreement, 2 one-year subsequent renewals, and all subsequent payments. At issue, the city's current 3-year Microsoft Enterprise Agreement expires on September 30th, 2023. This 3-year renewal continues the city's subscription of Office 365, including Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams, inclusive of implementation and support due to the COVID-19 emergency and the increase in remote workers. Staff recommended migrating to Microsoft Cloud's computing solution with Office 365 and Teams. With this renewal, during the cyber incident recovery, staff completed the move from on-premises systems to Microsoft 365 environment. Office 365 and Teams enables staff to collaborate remotely to a greater degree. 1B, motion to award the Recreation Center Heat Recovery Unit Replacement Project to Reliant Mechanical Services LLC of Denver, Colorado, and approve subsequent payments in the amount of $1,250,000 with a contingency amount of $62,500 for the total not to exceed amount of $1,312,500. A project to replace the Recreation Center's heat recovery units, HRUs, was included in the 2023 budget. The scope of the proposed project was developed by the facility staff with evaluation by an external mechanical engineer. 6 heat recovery units will be replaced with new energy-efficient units through this project. Due to the long lead time to manufacture the units, installation will not occur until spring of 2024. Staff recommends awarding a contract to Reliant Mechanical Services LLC of Denver, Colorado, in the amount of $1,250,000 plus a staff-managed contingency of $62,500 for a total not to exceed $1,312,500. 1C, motion to award the Courts Administration Area Remodeling Project to 7 Point Construction Incorporated of Centennial, Colorado, and approve subsequent payments in the amount of $121,700 with a contingency amount of $24,340 for a total not to exceed amount of $146,040. At issue, a project to update the court's administrative area was budgeted several years ago. The scope of the proposed project was developed by the facilities staff in conjunction with the court staff. New flooring, painting, and lighting will be installed, as well as modifications to the 2 transaction windows where staff assists patrons to make them more functional and ADA accessible. New office furniture will be provided through a separate contract. Staff recommends awarding a contract to 7 Point Construction Incorporated of Centennial, Colorado, in the amount of $121,700 plus a staff-managed contingency of $24,340 for a not-to-exceed amount of $146,040. 1D, motion to award a contract to Officescapes Incorporated of Denver, Colorado to supply and install office furniture for the Courts Administrative Area Remodel Project and approve subsequent payments in the amount of $83,772.34 with a contingency amount of $4,188 for a not-to-exceed total amount of $87,960.34. At issue, the project to update the court's administrative area was budgeted several years ago. The scope of the proposed project was developed by the facilities staff in conjunction with the court staff. New flooring, painting, lighting will be installed, as well as modifications to the 2 transaction windows. New office furniture will be also procured and installed for the space through this contract. The furniture and appurtenances, there you go, thank you, sir, are being purchased through Officescapes Incorporated in accordance with the cooperative purchasing contract for steel case materials through Sourcewell. Staff recommends awarding a contract to Officescapes Incorporated of Denver, Colorado in the amount of $83,722.34, plus a staff-managed contingency of $4,188 for a not-to-exceed amount of $87,960.34.
Thank you. This is our consent agenda. May I have a motion on items number 1A through 1D?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve consent agenda items number 1A, 1B, 1C, and 1D.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Hoppe. Would the clerk please poll the council?
Mr. Mayor, the motion has passed unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much. We will now go to agenda item number 2. Councilor Dozeman, would you please introduce this item?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council Bill number 19-2023, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at 4735 Kipling Street from Commercial 1 C1 to Mixed-Use Commercial Interstate MUC Interstate, case number WZ 2305. At issue, the applicant is requesting approval of a zone change from Commercial 1 to Mixed-Use Commercial Interstate for property located at 4735 Kipling Street. The zone change will result in a zoning that enables revitalization and reuse of the site by expanding permitted uses.
Thank you. This is an ordinance on second reading. It is a public hearing. It is quasi-judicial. If you intend to testify on this issue, by doing so at this public hearing, you agree to tell the truth as you understand it. I'm going to open the public hearing. And Mr. Goff, we have a staff presentation.
We do. Elena Olivias Lorea, our Planner 2, is here this evening to present on this item.
Okay. Please continue whenever you've got your technology in place.
I think we're good. Good evening. My name is Elena Olivas Loera, and I'm a planner with the City of Wheat Ridge Community Development Department. I'm presenting case number WZ 2305, which is a request for approval of a zone change from Commercial 1 to Mixed-Use Commercial Interstate at 4735 Kipling Street. I would like to enter into the public record the contents of the case file, the zoning ordinance, the comprehensive plan, and this digital presentation. The property is within the City of Wheat Ridge. All appropriate notification and posting requirements have been met, and therefore City Council has jurisdiction to hear this case. The subject property is outlined in red. The property is located on the west side of Kipling Street, south of the I-70 frontage road. The area is a mix of commercial and residential uses. The property is just over 3 acres in size and contains 2 motel buildings built in 1971. This is a zoning map of the area. The property is currently zoned C1 and is outlined in red. More C1 properties exist to the east and north that include the Super 8 Motel and Holiday Inn. Immediately south and west of the site is a planned residential development and Fruitdale Park. This is a view of the subject property looking south from the I-70 frontage road. It is 2 motel buildings with parking. This is a view of the subject property looking west from Kipling. The applicant recently purchased the property, and the purpose of the zone change is to enable reinvestment by allowing a wider range of uses, encouraging a better utilization of land, and ensuring high-quality urban design. The applicant intends to repurpose the existing buildings for multi-unit apartments. The C1 zone district allows a wide range of commercial land uses, which include office, general business, and retail sales and service establishments. By contrast, MUC interstate zoning allows residential uses, commercial uses, or a mix of the two, and the permitted retail uses are greater in number. The MUC interstate designation would allow more flexibility for revitalization of the site and will provide standards for any future redevelopment. The MUC Interstate District is complementary to the context of the corridor and the surrounding zoning and land uses and provides a wider range of allowed uses than the existing C1 zoning. This table summarizes the current and proposed zoning's development standards. Most of the proposed zoning development standards would apply if the property redeveloped in the future. Most notable differences between the 2 zone districts include building height, setback requirements, and lot coverage. The design standards in MEC Interstate are strict and include architectural standards, open space requirements, setbacks, and parking requirements. I would like to note that the maximum height in MEC Interstate is taller than C1, in part because the property is located in the area that voters exempt in 2008 from the the charter's height and density limitations. That means a single-use building can be up to 4 stories or 62 feet, and a building that is vertically mixed use can be up to 6 stories or 90 feet. As a requirement of the zone change process, a neighborhood meeting was held on April 4th, 2023, in a virtual Zoom meeting setting. 6 individuals attended the meeting and did not have any objections to the zone change. Because Wheat Ridge is not a full-service city, we sent the application on referral to outside agencies, including fire, water, and sanitation, as well as completed an internal review. We did not receive concerns or objections from outside agencies. Before the hearing, the property was posted for 15 days, and letters were sent to property owners and occupants within a 600-foot radius. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the request on July 20th, 2023. Staff received no comments from members of the public prior to this hearing. We used several criteria to evaluate zone change requests, which includes consistency with the comprehensive plan and other applicable plans. Staff believes that the proposed MEC interstate zoning is consistent with the policies and goals in the city's comp plan and the I-70 Kipling Urban Renewal Area Plan. The property is identified as mixed-use commercial within the structure plan, a designation used for existing commercial areas, and which calls for long-term infill and reinvestment. The I-70 Kipling Urban Renewal Area Plan calls for many of the same policies and goals of the city's comp plan, including high-quality architecture and design, the incorporation of new and existing uses in a mixed-use format, and the stabilization of existing neighborhoods. The mixed-use commercial interstate zoning designation is appropriate for the subject property, allowing the existing land to become conforming and enabling the possibility of future redevelopment, which aligns with the city's adopted goals and policies. Ultimately, staff is recommending approval of the request for the following reasons. Based on the character and land use patterns of the area, the MUC Interstate Zone District in this area is more appropriate than C1 in terms of allowed uses for the property. For that reason, the zone change should not have an adverse effect on the surrounding area. Staff finds the zone change to MUC Interstate is supported by the city's comprehensive plan and the I-70 Kipling Urban Renewal Area Plan, specifically the quality for high-quality architecture and design, the stabilization of existing neighborhoods, and reinvestment in aging commercial properties. This zone change request supports the comprehensive plan by enabling investment in the property and by aligning the zoning with the city's mixed-use goals for this corridor. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome Councilor Hulteen, who's been able to join us. Thank you for coming tonight. Before I open this to questions from council, I would like to open this to the public to speak on this issue. I don't have anyone signed up to speak, but if you are here in the hall and have not signed up, you may do so now, or you may come to the podium now and ask questions. And if there's anybody joining us online, if you would please raise your hand, we're happy to bring you into the meeting. Oh, excuse me, Mr. Dahl, I didn't see your hand go up there.
Thank you. I appreciate being able to interrupt only to clarify the role of Councilmember Hulteen, who arrived during the staff presentation. It's a quasi-judicial matter, of course, and the council members need to be fully informed to be able to deliberate and vote. However, as I perceive it, it's likely that Councilmember Hulteen has previously read the staff report, and that, in my opinion, will suffice for her having missed only a portion of the staff report. She's here for the rest of the hearing. So if I can make a brief record to confirm with Councilmember Hulteen that she has done that, then we can confirm that she can participate in the deliberation and vote on this matter. Councilmember Hulteen, is it true that you have read the staff report for this particular agenda item?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Dahl. I have read the packet for tonight,
Great.
including this agenda item.
And do you feel you're prepared, based upon that and whatever additional testimony is offered, to render a fair decision on the matter?
I do.
Excellent. With that record made, Councilmember Hulteen can participate fully in the rest of the matter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dahl. And in that regard, I'm going to open this up to questions from council. So if Councilor Hulteen has any questions, she may ask them at this time, or any other councilors. Are there questions of staff on this item? Councilor Ohm.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one question. With this particular property, is there any future widening or improvements in regards to like CDOT?
Yeah, so staff has had many conversations with CDOT, and we can't get a straight answer from them. There's no funding in place for the very talked about CDOT interchange project. So staff felt comfortable moving the applicant forward with the rezone. We don't want to preclude anybody from being able to develop their private property. So since we don't have anything set in stone, we felt comfortable moving them forward with this.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Maria DeAndrea may be able to add a little bit more light to that.
Okay, Director DeAndrea.
Yes, thank you. We have been in communication with CDOT regarding the interchange. What they're looking to potentially do is some interim improvements to improve safety. So while that doesn't necessarily hinder this process at all, that is something that we're discussing with them. But as Elena stated, there is no long-term plan right now to move forward with the full interchange project.
Thank you. Any additional questions from council? Before I close the public hearing, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing, and Councilor Dozeman, a motion is in order.
I move to approve Council Bill number 19, 2023, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at 4735 Kipling Street from Commercial 1 to Mixed-Use Commercial Interstate on second reading, order it published, and that it takes effect 15 days after final publication.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Ohm. Is there discussion on the motion? Councilor Dozeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm very happy to support this. I think it will be a great reuse for that area that has been very problematic for District 4. And so I'm going to support this, and gladly so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Additional discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
Mr. Mayor, the motion has passed unanimously by a vote of 6-0.
Thank you so much. Okay, we will now go to agenda item number 3. Councilor Ohm, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mayor. Council Bill number 23-2023, an ordinance amending Chapter 2 and Chapter 26 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning the city's subdivision and development review requirements and making conforming amendments therewith. At issue, the proposed ordinance updates Chapter 2 and Chapter 26 of the Code of Laws to revise the city subdivision and development review requirements. The ordinance accomplishes 3 main goals. 1, to prioritize meaningful public engagement and education intended to inform the public of impactful subdivision applications. 2, to reduce reliance on public hearings when the proposed uses and designs are permitted by the underlying zoning. And 3, to reduce duplication and unnecessary cross-references within the code to ensure it is easy to understand and administer.
Thank you. This is an ordinance on second reading. It is a public hearing. It is not quasi-judicial. I'm going to open the public hearing. And Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation?
We do. Our code amendments guru, Scott Culler, is here this
Okay.
evening.
Guru Cutler.
Thank you. I'm honored. All right, thank you, everyone. My name is Scott Cutler, Senior Planner at the City of Wheat Ridge, and I'm presenting this case number ZOA 2308, which is a code amendment regarding our subdivision and development review requirements. There we go. We were at council in April of 2023 at a study session to discuss this matter. It's been a while, took us a while to work on this code amendment, and we are finally back. But just to remind council, there was consensus to move this code amendment forward, essentially as presented, and I'll talk about a couple of things we had to add in. But the goals of this are really to prioritize meaningful public engagement and education, to reduce reliance on public hearings where proposed uses and designs are permitted by the underlying zoning, and then also to reduce a bunch of duplication and unnecessary cross-references in our code, both for staff's understanding, but also for the public's understanding. So the current subdivision ordinance, and I gave some of this background in April, but I'll go over it again just for everyone's benefit. The current subdivision ordinance was passed in 2014. There were lots of lessons learned since then. We've processed about 125 subdivision applications of various sizes since then. And what we found is that Wheat Ridge is really out of alignment, both with best practices from our community engagement strategy, national best practices, and a lot of our subdivisions want to do public hearings. So City Council did give consensus to proceed with this ordinance in April of 2023, and then Planning Commission recommended approval on August 17th. So to give a little bit of background, there's a couple of things here. So there are certain things that are called discretionary approvals, where a commission or board or staff has to use discretion to make an approval. And then there's non-discretionary approvals, which are really a set of guidelines that it either meets it or it doesn't meet it. And most subdivisions are considered non-discretionary, where they either meet those zoning requirements or they don't. Something like a rezoning application or a special use permit or a variance where someone's asking for special permission is considered discretionary. But non-discretionary are things like a site plan. It either meets the requirements or it doesn't meet the requirements, same with a subdivision. So in 2021, City Council identified new efforts of community engagement and education as a priority over the next 2 years. And the Community Involvement Task Force was established in early 2021. And the Community Involvement Strategy was established as the guiding document, which creates 3 different types of public participation. So there's the informing, educating, and celebrating, there's consulting, and then there's involving. And a public hearing is considered consulting the public because it includes a request for public comment and testimony. And so the promise made when consulting is that the community's comments and feedbacks will be considered in the decision-making process. And consulting is best deployed when input or feedback from the community would be helpful in determining alternatives, or there's the need to understand community desires. So a lot of that is with long-range planning, either consulting or involving the public. But from a subdivision standpoint, public hearings are really a bit divisive. And that's because in this case, Council or Planning Commission doesn't really have the ability to say no to a subdivision that otherwise meets the applications. Obviously, they could vote no, but that puts the city at significant liability if approvable subdivisions are not approved by decision makers. So from the public standpoint, when you have a public hearing where you invite comment, but you can't actually consider that as part of the decision making, that really builds division and mistrust. From the developer standpoint, if a subdivision has to go to public hearings, that introduces a bunch of uncertainty into a process. It's really inconsistent with other surrounding communities, and it lengthens the overall development process. And then from staff standpoint, we're undermining the public trust and expending a lot of resources on public hearings for certain subdivisions that do not necessarily need them. So just to give a little bit of background, the American Planning Association, which is planners' national organization, released an equity and zoning policy guide. And one of the recommendations was only requiring public hearings when there is a genuine need to use discretion in applying zoning criteria. So in the case of subdivision applications, there's not discretion because, like I said, it either meets the requirements or it doesn't, and the subdivision is being proposed for use that already is allowed on the property. So with all of that, the proposed ordinance makes a few changes. One of the biggest changes is to change how we use public hearings with subdivision applications. So on the left side of this chart, and it was also in the staff report, you can see our current requirements for when different types of subdivisions can either be reviewed and approved administratively by the community development director, whether they have to go to Planning Commission, the 4 or 5 lot subdivisions, and the 6+ lots require 2 public hearings at Planning Commission and City Council. City Council currently also reviews waivers and variances for subdivision applications. Those are rare, but they do happen. Things maybe like lot width or cul-de-sac length. And then City Council currently also reviews right-of-way vacations. That's giving up a city street or right-of-way. That's typical to require a public hearing. And then we're requiring public notice, obviously, for any public hearing. So the proposed code amendment makes some of the bigger changes, which is any subdivision that meets the underlying zoning requirements would become an administrative, or what we're calling a type 1 subdivision. And then a subdivision that has waiver or variances would be reviewed by the Planning Commission. That's a lot more common. City Council really rarely reviews variances. It's either Planning Commissions or Board of Adjustments. And then right-of-way vacation public hearings would stay the same. We recognize that anytime disposal of city property or assets is happening, public hearing is probably the best way to do that. And then one of the bigger changes, which is in the bottom right hand of the screen, it's a little bit in the way, is we're adding a requirement, because a lot of the subdivisions are becoming administrative, we're going to add a requirement that for any approved subdivision over 2 acres that results in new development, we'll also be providing a public notice of that approval. So I'll get into that in just a second. So the public notice will be required upon approval of subdivisions over 2 acres. And at the study session, we landed on 2 acres. We provided some options and landed on 2 acres. This is about half a block, or a little bit less than half of a block in the city. And we recognize that subdivisions of this size are going to be a lot more impactful. So this is why we're proposing that 2-acre threshold. 600-foot radius, like everywhere else in the city, same as other land use cases. And the letter would include a description of the approved subdivision, zone district information, construction hours, permit requirements. And it's really meant to inform the public with balanced, accurate, and objective information. So this is the inform category. We're not inviting feedback on this, but we're rather saying this is what's happening, this is why it's happening, and this is what you can expect. And we're still working on that language. We want to make sure it's as easy to understand as possible. The proposed ordinance also makes a few more changes that weren't discussed as much in the study session, but after consulting with our city attorney, we found that a lot of this is really necessary. There are a lot of sections in the code that are duplicated multiple times. We have a review process chart in the code, and we weren't really relying on that, but that's really a one-stop shop for knowing if you're applying for this type of application, what process do you need to go through, and then what are your appeal rights as well. And presently, that's all over the code, really hard to find, and what we're doing is essentially moving all of that into this table so it's a place for everyone to consult at the same time. And then lastly, one of the other things that we needed to do was clean up Chapter 2, not Chapter 26, the zoning code, but a different chapter that describes the responsibilities of the Planning Commission, but those responsibilities are also described in Chapter 26, and we don't need those duplicated multiple times. So with that, we are recommending approval of this ordinance, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Before we go to questions from council, I would like to invite the public to speak on this item. If you, I don't have anyone signed up to speak at this time, but if you are here in City Hall, you may come to the podium and speak to council on this. If you're joining us online, you may raise your hand, and we're happy to bring you into the meeting to talk about this issue. Mr. Clerk, do we have anyone raising their hand online?
We do. I have recognized a person who has listed their name as Along Stratus.
Okay.
CT.
If that person would please unmute yourself, and if you would please give us your first name and your last name, if you would please spell your last name for the record, and give us an address, you'll be able to address the council for 3 minutes. Do I have this person able to unmute and speak to the council?
I have asked this individual to unmute, and I have recognized them. So I'm not sure what's going on, Mr. Mayor.
We have one individual who's asked to be recognized. We've recognized them. If you can hear us, please unmute and give us your first name and last name and an address, and we're happy to have you speak with the council. I want to give you just a few more seconds here to see if you get a response. Okay, I don't hear any response coming from online. I apologize if we have any technical difficulties. I'm not aware that we do. Is there anyone else online or in the call that would like to speak on this matter as a member of the public? Okay.
No one else, Mr. Mayor.
I'm going to close our public comment on this item and go to questions from council. Are there any questions from council? Are there any questions before I close the public hearing and ask for a motion? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing, and Councilor Ohm, may I have a motion on this item?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve Council Bill number 23-2023, an ordinance amending Chapter 2 and Chapter 26 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning the city subdivision and development review requirements and making conforming amendments therewith on second reading, order published, and that it takes effect 15 days after final publication.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Weaver. Is there any discussion on the motion? Councilor Hulteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Two things. One is I just really appreciate things like this where you're cleaning up the code. It's like me cleaning out my basement. Needs to happen, but not always my top priority. So I'm grateful that our staff takes the time to recognize where we need to do that. A second thing just came up that's a little bit tangential, but seems appropriate to bring up. One of the things you're mentioning in here is keeping with the 600-foot notice that we have adopted in the last couple of years. And I've had a couple of constituents in the last couple of months, bring up to me that they haven't received notification when in fact they've been in the notification boundary. And we've heard that other times. And I'm wondering if the city has thought about maybe having a special envelope for when they mail those letters so that it doesn't look as much like all the other envelopes, but maybe has like a thing on the front saying that it's official notice or something that would catch the attention of people to notify them that what's in there is something that they should open and pay attention to. I mean, we can't babysit everybody, but my son's getting ready to go to college and my mailbox is just stacked with a bunch of stuff every day that looks kind of the same. So anyway, I don't know if that's something we've thought about, but as part of our notifications, that might be helpful to have the envelope sort of stand out a little bit as important and not just a regular city mailing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I want to commend the staff as well for being proactive and looking to clean up codes where we can and make things easier and better for our citizens. So thank you to our staff. And, I had a discussion with somebody in District 3 who lives kind of near the new development at 32nd and Kipling this past week, and he was a little upset with me because he was under the impression that I voted to rezone that property and kind of a long discussion. There and around, we never voted to rezone that property, right? But there was a public hearing, and there was, I believe, an 8-0 or 7-0 vote, and so a lot of those neighbors believed that property was rezoned when in fact it was used by right, R1, state R1, and that's been the same for several other properties, along 38th Avenue that were mixed use, stayed mixed use, but we had to have a public hearing which created a lot of division. So I think that this helps inform the public without giving them the impression that council can vote how they want to because you're voting on a specific set of criteria. So I really want to commend staff for doing this and for council for continuing to push things like this forward to make everything cleaner and better for our citizens. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Weaver.
I agree with both of the comments that have been said, and I really like the idea of Ms. Hulteen's of putting something on the envelope, kind of like the sign that says notice to public, or just because that does get people's, I'm always amazed that if there is a notice in front of the farm that people actually, I hope they're not stopping in the middle of 38th, but they're reading it because of that very specific signage. So maybe we can use that. Thanks.
Thank you.
And thank you to staff for all of this.
Any additional discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council? Thank you very much. We will now go to agenda item number 4. So I didn't get all of my notes transferred today. Who's doing number 4?
I am.
Councilor Weaver, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Council Bill number 24-2023, an ordinance amending Article 3 of Chapter 22 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning basic local telecommunications service. At issue, the city's code regarding the taxation of basic local telecommunications services requires revision. The current code is based on a false premise that Lumen, formerly US West, Quest, and CenturyLink, is still the primary provider of telephone lines in the city. Based on this premise, competitors are charged at a per-line rate computed from Lumen's number of lines and the flat occupation tax paid by Lumen per ordinance from 1997
To 1970, yeah.
to 1972.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an ordinance, per ordinance 1997-1072. Thank you. Due to the rapid decline of landlines provided by Lumen, the per-line charge to other providers has risen substantially. Furthermore, the current code is confusing as to how cellular lines are treated from a taxation perspective. The types and means of deliveries of telecommunication services has evolved significantly since the city enacted its telecommunication occupation tax code in 1997. The current code does not reflect the status of the telecommunications industry, nor is it consistent with Wheat Ridge's municipal neighbors. Staff recommends an update to the tax code to ensure equity, simplicity, revenue preservation, and ease of administration for both telecommunication providers and city staff.
Thank you. This is an ordinance on first reading to set the date, time, and location for a public hearing. Councilor Weaver, may I have a motion on this item?
You may. I move to approve Council Bill number 24-23, an ordinance amending Article 3 of Chapter 22 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning basic local telecommunications service on first reading, order it published, public hearing set for Monday, September 25th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. as a virtual meeting and in City Council chambers, and that it take effect upon adoption and signature by the mayor and city clerk as permitted by Section 5.11 of the Charter.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Stites. Would the clerk please poll the council? Okay, thank you very much. With that, we will go to agenda item number 5. Councilor Hoppe, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a motion to accept the 2022 financial statements from Clifton Larson Allen. At issue, Section 10-15 of the Municipal Charter for the City of Wheat Ridge requires that an independent audit be performed annually of all city accounts. In 2022, the city received more than $750,000 in federal funds for Wadsworth Boulevard, which also triggered a single audit of all federal funds. The CPA firm Clifton Larson Allen, CLA, performed both the city and federal audits of the city's financial statements for the year end December 31st, 2022. Once again, this year, the city received an unqualified opinion indicating that the city's financial statements are fairly and appropriately presented. A representative from CLA will be at the September 11th, 2023 City Council meeting to present the 2022 financial statements to council for acceptance.
Thank you. This will be a motion of the council. It is not quasi-judicial. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this?
We do. I'll turn it over to Allison to introduce our representative from CLA.
Also named Allison. Hi, Mayor and Council, thanks so much for having us here this evening. I'm so happy to be here with Allison Slife from Clifton Larson Allen. You've met Allison before. And online, Mr. Clerk, if we could promote Mark Colvin, please, as a panelist. Our finance manager, Mark, is also here should you have any questions, but I'll turn it over to Ms. Slife. Thanks, Allison, for being here this evening.
Great, thank you so much, and thanks for having me this evening, and I'm excited to present the results of the audit. Obviously, it's been some time since you closed your fiscal year 22, but it does take a long while to get it to the place we're at now, and happy to present the results tonight. Certainly able to address any questions that council might have or any comments from management, as well as Mark, who I know is online as well. So just to cover some of the highlights, I know already that was discussed just in the introduction of this section, but the financial statements, which this is kind of what it looks like hard copy, but you should have an electronic version in front of you. Really the most important part of this was covered was our ultimate audit opinion, which is labeled page 1 of the hard copy, our independent auditor's report. So that is our ultimate report over the financial statements for the city for the year ended December 31st, 2022. So really the most important section is the second paragraph of that opinion, where it does talk about having that unmodified or clean opinion, which is the best opinion that an entity can receive. So we did want to congratulate the city again on achieving that this year. There's a lot that goes into it and a lot of work to get to the point we're at now. So did want to thank certainly management and everyone involved across the city to be able to bring that collective effort forward. So did want to just touch on that real quickly with our independent auditor's report. One other item I just wanted to mention too, right after that, starting on hard copy page 5 of the financial statements, is management discussion and analysis, or MD&A isn't the acronym there. So that's just a good, 5-6 page summary of what happened from year over year. So if you're looking for a pretty quick summary, this is a comparative, kind of comparing 21 to 22. Obviously, almost 9 months have passed at this point, so won't spend a lot of time on the numbers, but it is a good summary of kind of how the financial statements flow, how governments present financial statements. So just wanted to mention that section there. And then right after that section is really the heart of the financial statements, which is the statement of net position, page 16, hard copy of that financial statement document. And that's really the all-in look of the city, really the only time you get to see everything shown from a city perspective, all of the long-term assets, all of the debt, all of the related activity there. So just wanted to point that out because that is a bit of a unique way to look at it, is really in these audited financial statements every year. More what you're used to seeing more month to month is more on a current basis. This is the time that is shown from a long-term basis. So like I said, kind of capital assets and debt activities is really the biggest difference there. Otherwise, in the financial statements, there's a lot of pages of footnotes as well that do follow the financial statements themselves, kind of the story behind the numbers. So if there's something curious you're about or some major aspect of the city's accounting policies, that's all disclosed within the financials. At the very back, I did want to just touch on that. It was mentioned that the city did go through a single audit again this past year, and what that means is when governments or nonprofits receive $750,000 or more of federal funding, they have to go through a single audit. So that's really an additional audit on top of the annual financial audit. It's a deep dive into compliance of federal programs as well as internal controls over those federal programs. So what we do is get a listing of your federal awards, federal expenditures, and then have to go through a risk assessment to determine what programs are up for audit. Usually those are the largest programs have to be audited every 3rd year. So for you all, that is listed kind of at the very back of that financial statement packet. Page 71 kind of lists the summary of those overall results. This past year we did, as you all are well aware, did still have the impact of COVID-19, a lot of the pandemic funding that occurred. And so we did audit the COVID-19 coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds under ARPA, as you probably know that name. So we did audit that this past year. So just wanted to mention that, as that's kind of an additional procedure that the city had to go through because they did have a certain level of spending. At the very back of the financials also highlights any findings that we did have, and so this past year we did have one financial statement finding that is highlighted on page 72, hard copy. It was related to the financial statements of the city. It was an adjustment to how investments are reported in terms of one of the activities there. It was corrected, so the financial statements you see in front of you are correct. Management agreed to that adjustment, but it was big enough of a dollar amount that did require an audit adjustment. So there's a corrective action plan that management put together of how to remedy that going forward. That's more for your knowledge as part of that financial statement packet. So the only other communication I was going to mention was just a separate letter that's addressed to you all from City Council. It really just summarizes any audit results, things that I already kind of touched on, but that is separately issued, that we do have that direct communication with you all because we are engaged with council to perform the audit for the city. So nothing really too different in this letter compared to last year. Really the biggest impact was a new accounting standard related to leases. So this was a change that all governments had to make this past year, where basically leases were treated differently. Probably have talked about that the past several years, and it finally had to be implemented. So that is something new that's in your financial statements, that impact. It's disclosed, and so just something we call to mind for your knowledge. A lot a lot of work that has to be done from an accounting standpoint to analyze agreements and if they meet the standard. So otherwise, yeah, this letter is really just for your knowledge. The last piece I'll mention attached to that letter is the management representation letter. So that's a letter that is signed by management. We get as part of issuing the audit, making sure that they let us know about any litigation going on. They gave us supporting documentation, a kind of a laundry list of items. And so that's just for your knowledge that we did get that signed letter before we release the audit opinion. So that's the audit in a nutshell. I could go on and on, but I know you have other agenda items, so happy to address any questions or comments that council might have.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. White. Before we go to questions from council, I'd like to, pardon me, open this up to the public to speak on this item. I don't have anyone signed up to speak, but if you're here in the council chambers, you may come to the podium and speak now. If you're joining us online, please raise your hand, and we're happy to bring you into the meeting. And I'll give it just a moment and ask our clerk if anyone is raising their hand.
I see no one's hand raised. Mr.
Okay, no one's raising their hand. No one's coming up to speak. I don't have anyone signed up to speak. We'll give it one more couple of seconds and see if anything changes. And it looks like nothing has changed, so I'll close our public's right to speak on this and go to questions from council. Looks like it was a very efficient report. No questions? Okay, thank you very much, Ms.
Great.
White. Appreciate this.
Thank you.
Councilor Hoppe, may I have a motion on this item?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I move to accept the 2022 financial statements from Clifton Larson Allen.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Stites. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
Mr. Mayor, the motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes our agenda items. I would like to now go to City Manager's Matters. Mr. Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, as a reminder to council and the public, we do have a public hearing on the 2024 budget. Got to keep our years straight here. Not public hearing, but a study session next Monday to go over the budget. So we do encourage any public to come and provide comments. The budget is available online in the city clerk's office, at the library. Happy to answer any questions. I encourage council, if you have any questions before next Monday, to get with Ally or myself. And we look forward to presenting the budget to you next Monday. Thank you.
Very expeditious. City Attorney's Matters. Mr. Dahl.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Even quicker, yes, thank you. Let's see, Elected Officials Matters. I'll start with our clerk, Kirkpatrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll go with Councilor Hulteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got Happiness Gardens report. Last night they had their annual potluck, and I was unable to attend, but I did walk this morning through there, and they had a lot of fun. They painted rocks, and it's just really such a wonderful community that's developing around the garden. So, and I may have picked a couple tomatoes this morning while I was there. So, then I couldn't go because we had our annual block party at the same time as our 11th annual, and I was just so impressed with how many new kids we had. It was like we had an entire soccer team that was playing around, and it was a lot of fun. And we had a lot of new people who showed up, and they just really loved connecting with neighbors who'd lived there a long time, and lots of stories, and we huddled under tents. So I was just reminded this weekend of what a great community we have here in the city, and it happens because a lot of us keep showing up. So just kudos to everyone who keeps showing up. One thing, Maria, since you're here, I noticed that the pedestrian-activated rapid flashing beacon that's by Stevens, the button is not working on the south side of the road. So I helped some young kids cross the road because they were like pushing it and waiting for it to stop, and it is not. It's working on the north side, but not the south side. Yep, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilor Dozeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just wanted to take a moment in observance and recognize the 9/11 attacks and all the lives lost in the United States with that domestic terrorist attack, and all of the brave first responders that went into the building to save their fellow man, and just the camaraderie that brings into our country. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a District 3 meeting this weekend that we're having at Vinola's. That's a fantastic location in District 3. And that will be at what time? At 9. And we'd love to see everybody from District 3 and other districts if you all want to come hang out at Vinola's with us. School's back in, and lots of kids walking to Prospect Valley down 38th. Just like everybody to slow down and keep their eyes open for everybody. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councilor Olm.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a reminder, National Parklands is coming up on September 23rd for cleaning up on the Clear Creek. Contact Matthew Martinez at Jeffco. And then this last Saturday, I was able to do a bike ride to raise money for Tour de Cure, raise awareness for diabetes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilor Hoppy.
Nothing tonight, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maria, since you're here, can you give us an update on the sinkholes on Independence and Hoyt, our very large friends that are there?
Yes, thank you for that opportunity. We did put that out for bid, so we're replacing, just to back up a little bit, we've had some failed storm sewer at the far north end of the cul-de-sac at 39th and Hoyt, and then another location at approximately the intersection of 37th and Independence, so south of 38th. We did put that out for bids, and we're going to be replacing roughly about 700 feet of 48-inch storm sewer. That storm sewer has been brought on site. It's adjacent, and it's kind of an open park area just adjacent to Apple Ridge Restaurant. So you may see that pipe out there, shiny and new. And they're going to be starting hopefully tomorrow to start installing that, probably at the 39th and Hoyt location.
Thank you.
We did have another sinkhole today, or yesterday, that showed up too on 32nd Avenue at Salisbury. So we're in the process of evaluating that, and we'll also put a plan of action together to repair that.
Thank you. That was my next question. I was also going to ask, how are we doing on pothole repair? I know it's been a wet, kind of rough spring, summer. Do we have crews out doing potholes and things like that?
We haven't. We've been focused on the drainage. We're accumulating a list, so please pass those along. Send in a service request to the Public Works Department, send myself an email, and we'll get those on the list. So we do have them. It's on our plan, just haven't addressed it yet.
Appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate your guys' hard work. I know that came about suddenly, and I know you guys have been working very hard on that. I was able to go last week or so with Chelsea Bunker and the Wheat Ridge Business District, and we took a tour of the Third Shot Pickleball, which is going in where Lucky's was, and I think District 3 is lucky to have another really cool business, but this kind of fills a very big, massive hole that those neighbors have been asking about for a while, and the owners of Third Shot are really, really cool guys. They own tennis clubs and are tennis pros, and now pickleball, and they're doing a first-class operation there. It's going to be really cool. There's a full bar, restaurant, so I think District 3 is going to be pretty excited to see that, and they're shooting for the fall here of 2023, so looks like they got some work to do in there because it's a big open space right now, but I think they're going to have 13 courts, they're going to have lessons. It's going to be really cool, so check that out, everybody, if you can, and I think that's going to be pretty popular all over the Denver metro area. I think there's only one other one just like it in Boulder, so that's going to be huge. I was able to pop into Coffee with the Mayor the other day at Vinola's, and I figure since we have our meeting coming up next week, I'd go see how the Real Pro does it. So I appreciate that, and as usual, very robust discussion and a lot of really good points made by the citizens, and it was really fun to be a part of that. So thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to be a part of that. And then District 3, we have our District 3 meeting at Vinola's 9 a.m. on Saturday. So love to have you guys there. We're going to be discussing all things Wheat Ridge and all things District 3 and letting you guys know what's going on. We may have some special guests and some special topics as well. So hope everybody can be there for that. And with that, I had the opportunity yesterday to go to breakfast at a birthday party, actually. Bumped into Jenny from the Wheelie Bean, who talked me into going and getting breakfast tacos over at Mestizo, which if you haven't been over to Mestizo, fantastic breakfast. And the other day before I popped into Vinola's, I was able to go get breakfast over at Mr. Biscuits, which is a fantastic family-owned company, so delicious. You're going to gain some weight if you eat there a lot, but pretty fantastic. So if you can find it and buy in Wheat Ridge. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Roll.
Thank you, Mayor. So first I want to say thank you to staff. There was a sidewalk issue on the north side of the rec center that got very quickly repaired. They did kind of a patchwork, and I was a little skeptical of the patchwork, but that all got scooped up, and there's brand new concrete. And a lot of people bike that trail, and so that's great that that got fixed so quickly. But one question I did have is, there's like I don't know if I'd call it a sinkhole, but there's definitely a depression on 41st if you're on that trail and you're heading north where it intersects 41st, there's like like a foot deep kind of depression, I guess is what I would call it. Do you call that, Patrick?
I don't know the exact location, but we'll check with staff. 41st and on the trail or the road?
It's on the road.
It's on the road.
West of Kipling.
West of Kipling, okay.
On 41st, but it's
Gotcha.
kind of like right when you kind of come off that Clear Creek path.
Sure. Okay.
And you kind of go on the road. It's right there.
We'll check it out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank the folks that joined me at Vinola's on Saturday morning. It must be time to go back to school because I had some really engaged citizens come and had a lot of great comments and great conversation between them. It was really a great opportunity to exchange ideas and see how our city is moving forward, which there's a lot of things going on, a lot of great directions. So I want to thank them for that. I want to recognize 9/11, an attack on our country, whether internal or external, is very, very serious, and I hope that we all respond to our civic engagements and civic responsibilities to keep our cities and towns and country safe. So thanks to the brave people who worked 22 years ago, I think, to assist the folks that were damaged in that attack. I don't believe have any more business to come before us. I think we have a study session here next week. So I think we're discussing the budget next week. All right. So anyway, stay tuned for that. School is back in session, but there's good weather, and our children are out playing and enjoying themselves. So please drive safely and carefully through our city. Be safe. Go home tonight, and we look forward to having you back. So with that, we will stand adjourned.